Today, we are going to break down a concept that is so powerful, it quietly runs everything from our office dynamics to our national pride. It's all about the psychology of us versus them. And trust me, once you see it, you will start seeing it absolutely everywhere. So let's just start with a really simple but kind of deep question. Who are you? No, seriously, take a second. If you had to answer that right now, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Chances are you thought about your unique personality, right? Your hobbies, your dreams, all the things that make you, the I part of yourself. But you know what? That is only half the picture. A massive part of who you are also comes from the we, the groups you belong to. Think about it. Your family, the team you work with, your community, your country. You're not just an I, you're also a we. So, how does this all work? How do these group memberships become so important to us? Well, this is where we get into what you could call the identity game, and the big idea for today's explainer, social identity theory. And here it is in a nutshell. Social identity theory is this really powerful idea that a huge piece of who you think you are, and maybe even more importantly, how good you feel about yourself, is tied directly to the groups you're a part of. It's not just a small thing, it's fundamental to how our minds work. And this is what creates such a powerful emotional link. I mean, think about it. When your favorite sports team wins the championship, you feel amazing, right? You feel like a winner. When your company has a great quarter, you feel that pride. Your own personal self-esteem gets this very real, tangible boost from your group's success. Okay, so the theory is built on a few really simple but profound assumptions. First, our self has those two sides we just talked about, the personal I and the social we. Second, these group memberships aren't just labels we wear, they mean something to us on a deep psychological level. And finally, and this is the engine that drives the whole thing, we have this built-in motivation to see our own groups as positively as possible. So how does this actually happen inside our heads? Well, it's not random. It's actually a pretty predictable three-step process. So let's break down exactly how your social identity gets built, piece by piece. It all unfolds in three stages. First up is categorization. That's just us sorting the world into different groups. Then comes identification, where we pick a group and make its identity our own. And finally, there's comparison, where we stack our group up against others, all in the name of feeling good about ourselves. Let's start at the top. Step 1, social categorization. Look, our brains are basically sorting machines. They're wired to take a really complex world and simplify it. So we automatically, at a lot of the time totally unconsciously, sort people into boxes. We create an us and a them just to make the world easier to understand. It's a mental shortcut we all use. And you've seen this play out a million times, right? Back in school, it was maybe the science kids versus the humanities kids. Or at work, it's that classic friendly rivalry between the marketing department and the finance department. These are perfect, everyday examples of social categorization in action. Okay, so this sorting naturally leads us to step 2, social identification. Once we've mentally put ourselves into a group, we start to really internalize it. That group's identity, its beliefs, its behaviors, its reputation, starts to become a part of our own identity. And this quote just perfectly captures that mental shift. You don't just work in a department anymore. You start to think, I am a part of team marketing. Their wins feel like your wins. Their losses sting a little bit more. Your loyalty and even your actions start to line up with the group. Which brings us to the final, and you could argue the most powerful step, social comparison. Remember that we said our self-esteem is tied to our group? Well, to feel good about ourselves, we have to feel good about our group. And the main way we do that is by finding ways to believe that our group is, well, better than the others. This is where that us versus them dynamic really kicks into high gear. We tend to look at our own group, our in-group, through rose-colored glasses. We're creative, we're hardworking, we're the good guys. And the out-group? Well, we often see them as competitors, and we might judge their exact same behaviors much more harshly. This boosts our group's status, and as a result, boosts our own self-worth. Okay, so this isn't just some abstract theory you'd find in a dusty old psychology textbook. It has huge, practical consequences for our day-to-day lives. So let's take a look at where this theory is actually making a real impact out there in the world. We see its principles being used all the time to solve actual problems, whether it's in education, in big companies, or even in public health and building stronger communities. So in schools, for instance, instead of just letting kids break off into small competing cliques, Smart educators try to create a bigger, more inclusive identity that everybody can share. By really emphasizing that they're all part of one school community, you can actually reduce a lot of that friction and conflict between groups. And it's the exact same logic in the workplace. Have you ever wondered what those company-wide team building events are really for? They're a direct attempt to break down those marketing versus finance walls and build one single shared company identity. It's a direct application of this theory, all designed to get people to collaborate better. Now, look at this. What a powerful way to use this idea in public health. This quote frames getting a vaccine not as just some personal medical decision, but as an act of group solidarity. It brilliantly taps into that we identity as members of this neighborhood to encourage a behavior that protects the whole community. It's just incredibly effective. Of course, no theory is perfect, right? A huge strength of this one is that it helps explain things like prejudice as a normal group process, not just the fault of a few bad people. But a fair criticism is that it can sometimes downplay the role of power in history. It doesn't always explain why certain groups have more status or resources to begin with, which, is a really crucial piece of the puzzle in the real world.
So after all that, what's the single most important thing to walk away with? It all comes down to what we can call the power of us. This right here is your key takeaway.
And this quote just nails it. It tells us that a lot of our big, complex social problems, things like prejudice or conflict inside a company, aren't really about individual bad attitudes. They're rooted in the meanings we give to our groups. And the solution then isn't just to try and change individuals, but to change the very definitions of the groups themselves. Which brings this whole thing full circle, right back to you. Understanding this theory gives you this powerful new lens to see the world and to understand yourself. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what we defines you, and how does that identity shape the way you see everything else? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for tuning in.